My daughter declined to visit me in the hospital while I teetered on the edge of death, all because she was marking her husband's birthday. "I'm occupied," she stated, despite the physicians urging her to rush over. A fortnight later, I contacted the bank and took the necessary steps. Following that, my daughter stormed into my home in a frenzy, but I'd already finalized my decision. Before we proceed, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments where you're tuning in from. The constant beeping drew me back from a shadowy, far-off place. My eyelids weighed as much as cinder blocks, and when I finally pried them apart, the stark fluorescent glare pierced my head like sharp pins. "Mr. Dunn, are you able to hear me?" A female voice, expert yet compassionate. I attempted to respond, but my throat scratched like rough grit. The space swirled around me. Pale walls, devices with flashing indicators, lines trailing from my limbs. My torso throbbed with every inhale. "What?" I rasped out. What occurred to me? The nurse bent nearer, her tag displaying Janet. She possessed gentle eyes framed by thin metal spectacles. "You experienced a cardiac event, Mr. Dunn. You're in the ICU at Northwestern Memorial. It's Tuesday afternoon, April 15th. Tuesday? I recalled heading out for groceries on Monday morning. All that followed was a void. How long have I been admitted? Since last evening. The EMTs delivered you around 7 p.m. She tweaked a setting on one of the gadgets. You gave us quite a fright for a bit. A physician materialized beside my bed, youthful and weary-looking, with a stethoscope slung around his neck like a symbol of expertise. He applied the chilly disc to my chest, scowling at what he detected. "Mr. Dunn, I'm Dr. Martinez. Your heart endured substantial harm, but you're steady at present. We must observe you meticulously in the coming days. Will I recover?" The query emerged feebler than I'd planned. With appropriate care and adjustments to your habits, numerous individuals bounce back effectively from such incidents. He jotted entries on his pad. "Will cover prescriptions, nutritional shifts, and ongoing monitoring." I bobbed my head, my engineer's brain instinctively organizing the details, attempting to digest the mechanical elements. Cardiac event, major impairment, close surveillance. The terms seemed alien, as if they pertained to another person's existence. Janet fine-tuned my intravenous line. "Your blood pressure is stabilizing. Are you feeling any discomfort in your chest currently?" "A bit." I moved a little, and agony surged through my body. "It seems like an elephant's perched on me." "That's typical following your ordeal," Dr. Martinez noted. "We'll control your discomfort with drugs, but alert us if it intensifies." The afternoon blurred into a series of clinical routines, blood samples, heart tracings, dosage tweaks. Caregivers arrived and departed with skilled efficiency, monitoring my signs, inquiring about my discomfort, clarifying each apparatus's function. By dusk, they judged me secure enough for relocation to a standard ward. Janet assisted with the transition, pushing my bed along pristine hallways bordered by uniform entrances. "Room 347, she declared as we arranged into the fresh area. "This should feel more pleasant for you." The space featured a westward-facing window, and from it, I could observe the urban glow starting to sparkle as night descended. Chicago appeared altered from this vantage, tinier, more controllable. The scene evoked the schematics I'd once pored over, all elements arranged in tidy, rational designs. "Dr. Ellis will stop by soon," Janet mentioned, inspecting the displays once more. "He's your heart specialist. Solid fellow. You'll appreciate him." I eased back onto the cushions, fatigue pressing on my arms and legs. My form seemed unfamiliar, undependable in unprecedented ways. At 68, I'd always taken pride in my self-reliance, my competence. Now I couldn't even rise without aid. The window slowly dimmed as twilight enveloped the metropolis. Out there somewhere, existence carried on routinely. Folks commuting from jobs, households assembling for meals, kids frolicking in green spaces. In contrast, I remained linked to equipment that tracked each thump of my injured heart. Dr. Ellis rapped softly prior to stepping in, his demeanor instantly earning deference, tall and refined, with hair streaked in silver and thin-framed glasses. He moved with the subdued assurance of one accustomed to conveying tough updates. "Benjamin, I'm Dr. Grover Ellis." He drew a seat near my bed and settled in, flipping open a hefty medical dossier. "How are you holding up tonight?" "Like a freight train ran me over," I confessed, "but improved from earlier, I guess." He grinned fleetingly, then turned grave. "I must discuss your situation candidly. The cardiac incident was intense, classified as a STEMI, impacting the primary vessel feeding your cardiac tissue." I inclined my head, my technical training aiding my understanding of the system's breakdown. Dr. Ellis extracted a heart rhythm strip, the jagged patterns resembling some modern artwork. "Notice this portion? It reveals the injury to your left anterior descending vessel. We succeeded in clearing it via urgent treatment, but you forfeited roughly 20% of your cardiac tissue. What implications for my outlook? With suitable management, plenty of folks lead complete lives post such events. But I won't sugarcoat it. Things were precarious for hours." He inclined forward a touch. "Benjamin, I have to inquire. Do you have relatives we ought to notify? Next of kin?" My chest constricted, uncertain if from sentiment or physiology. "My daughter Agnes. She resides in Lincoln Park with her spouse." Dr. Ellis reviewed his records. "I attempted reaching her yesterday upon your admission. The circumstances were dire, and we believed. Well, we thought you might not pull through till morning." His inflection caused my gut to twist. "You conversed with her?" "I did." He paused, evidently uneasy. "Benjamin, I've specialized in cardiology for 25 years. I've placed thousands of these notifications to kin. Typically, when I inform someone their dad suffered a major cardiac arrest and may not last the night." What was her response? My tone was scarcely audible. Dr. Ellis gazed at his fingers, then met my eyes with sincere empathy. She mentioned she was tied up, that it was her husband's birthday celebration and she couldn't depart the gathering. The statement struck like a tangible strike. I sensed my pulse tracker accelerate as my heartbeat surged. "Even after you conveyed it could be my final evening?" Regrettably, yes. His delivery was soft, yet direct. I detailed the gravity, mentioned you were calling for her. She indicated she'd attempt a visit later this week if her agenda allowed. I fixed my gaze on the overhead panels, absorbing this revelation. The child I'd nurtured, schooled, bolstered through each adult hardship, couldn't interrupt a festivity while I hovered near death. "I'm truly sorry to relay this," Dr. Ellis went on. I pondered whether to disclose it, but I feel patients deserve awareness of their loved ones' reactions in crises. "No, you did right by informing me." My words rang empty, even to me. I required the truth. He lingered a few minutes more, outlining drug timetables and recuperation forecasts, but I scarcely registered them. My thoughts looped his phrases. She was occupied, her husband's birthday. Couldn't abandon the festivity. "I'll look in on you tomorrow morning, Doctor," Ellis stated, rising. "Attempt some sleep. Your system needs recovery time." Once he departed, the chamber grew eerily silent, save for the consistent signaling of my cardiac display. Beyond the glass, Chicago's illuminations extended infinitely, each representing another's existence, another's focuses. Agnes had clarified hers. The entrance latched, stranding me with the crushing reality. I adjusted in the bedding, seeking ease, but the pang in my core now stemmed from no medical cause. She was occupied. It was her husband's birthday. I peered at the metropolitan glows through my pain. Each flickering light a cue of all the ordinary clans out there. Clans where offspring hasten to their dad's side when he's fading. Perhaps Dr. Ellis misconstrued. Maybe Agnes failed to comprehend the urgency. I knew her. She could be distracted, immersed in her bubble. But certainly, confronting her father's end. Yet inwardly I recognized the truth. This wasn't her initial instance prioritizing her ease over my welfare. It was merely the harshest. My thoughts wandered to Northwestern University 23 years prior. Agnes, wide-eyed and resolute in pursuing business studies, positioned in my kitchen with admission notices scattered on the counter. "Dad, I was accepted to Northwestern. Isn't it amazing?" I could accept it. I'd aided with each submission, each composition. What stunned me was the fee statement, $40,000. My engineer's pay was solid, but that sum demanded overtime labor for years, forgoing trips, delaying my retirement aspirations. But witnessing her expression that day, brimming with optimism and drive, how could I refuse? I toiled 60-hour stretches for 4 consecutive years, weekends at the advisory company, holidays devoted to assessments. My spine throbbed endlessly from stooping over diagrams, and I subsisted on caffeine and resolve. Agnes finished magna cum laude. I beamed with pride. Then the nuptials arrived. Martin Harper, a slick entrepreneur with grand visions and larger obligations. I mistrusted him immediately, but Agnes was smitten and desired a storybook ceremony. Dad, marriage happens once. I want perfection. $15,000 for a single occasion. The location, the blooms, the shooter, everything top tier. I depleted my leisure savings, drew from my retirement fund, labored additional hours until my fingers trembled from weariness. The union endured 2 years before dissolution. Then reconciliation, then another split. Amid every turmoil, every reunion, every fresh enterprise of Martin's that collapsed, I stood ready with funds. Initial payment for their debut residence, $12,000. Advance for Martin's eatery that folded, $8,000. Urgent aid when Agnes was laid off, $3,000. Vehicle fix when their BMW failed, $500. I'd maintained a tally mentally over time, akin to how engineers track stress computations. The figures were astounding, exceeding $100,000, excluding the innumerable weekends aiding relocations, the anniversary tokens, the holiday offerings that strained my finances annually. And the previous night, as I clung to life in this facility, Agnes couldn't exit abashed. I turned onto my flank, disregarding the tug of infusion lines, and surveyed the Chicago horizon. Out there in their Lincoln Park apartment I'd assisted in funding, Agnes and Martin likely chuckled with companions, sipping premium vintages, toasting another year of Martin's fruitless existence. She'd attempt a visit sometime this week if her timetable allowed, as though checking on her ailing father was a chore to slot amid vital pursuits. The fury mounted gradually, emerging as a heated lump in my abdomen and expanding until my chest scorched with an issue unrelated to heart injury. For 68 years I'd been the accountable figure, the dependable one, the sacrificer for others' triumphs. What reward? A daughter who prized event coordination over her dad's survival. A son-in-law who'd never toiled earnestly, yet existed lavishly on my benevolence. A solitary ward where I calculated the harsh arithmetic of boundless affection. I'd bestowed everything upon Agnes. Now came the moment to observe her actions when that everything hung in the balance. My cardiac tracker signaled reliably in the gloom. Each beat a prompt that I persisted, still able to dictate choices regarding my path and inheritance. Agnes believed she could dismiss me, undervalue me, regard me as a bother. She was on the verge of discovering her error. Dawn's rays seeped through my hospital pain as I ingested the assortment of tablets Nurse Janet had arranged on my nightstand. 3 days had elapsed since Dr. Ellis imparted his shattering update, and though my heart mended, another aspect within me solidified. "Time for your stroll, Mr. Dunn," proclaimed Rita, the rehab specialist. Her upbeat attitude clashed with my disposition, but I obliged. We ambled along the hallway, my limbs still unsteady yet firmer than the day before. The heart unit buzzed with hushed dialogues and signaling devices. In room 352 I spotted an aged gentleman seated solo, eyeing a faded bouquet. "Good morning," I offered, halting at his threshold. He glanced up with fatigued gaze. "Morning. You're the engineer in 347, correct?" "I'm Harold, Benjamin." I rested against the frame, thankful for the pause. "You appear distressed." Harold's chuckle lacked mirth. "My boy drained my savings while I was admitted. $35,000. Claimed it was for his enterprise." He motioned to the fading petals. These arrived with a note expressing regret. No drop-in, no ring, just regret. The revelation struck like a solid hit. "Another parent. Another disloyalty. Kin," Harold persisted sourly. "They assume we'll eternally pardon them since we're their folks." I retreated to my quarters, profoundly disturbed. That afternoon I placed my initial call. Chase Bank support line. "This is Michelle. Benjamin Dunn here. I require details on canceling power of attorney for my accounts." "I'll verify your details first, Mr. Dunn." After the routine queries, she proceeded to cancel power of attorney. You must present yourself in person with appropriate papers and submit official cancellation documents. What papers precisely? Photo identification, the initial power of attorney paperwork, and executed revocation sheets. The procedure requires 24 hours post-submission. I expressed gratitude and disconnected, my thoughts whirling. Agnes held power of attorney on my finances, which I'd assigned her 2 years back during my bout with pneumonia, when I needed assistance with payments. It appeared sensible then. Now it resembled arming her with a charged firearm. The ensuing week dragged with systematic exactness. Daily yielded minor advancements, striding farther unaided, consuming solid meals, tapering pain relief. But crucially, each day delivered fresh insights. On Wednesday, I rang Thompson and Associates, the downtown notary service. Concerning alterations to a will, the assistant clarified, Illinois regulations mandate the maker's in-person appearance with 2 observers. We also suggest confirmation of mental fitness if recent medical events occurred. What sort of confirmation? Generally, a statement from your primary doctor affirming your capacity for legal choices. Ideal. Dr. Ellis would supply that without hesitation. By Friday, my release strategy coalesced. Agnes had phoned once, a curt, dutiful exchange where she queried my status with the zeal one might apply to weather chit-chat. I'm improving significantly, I informed her. That's wonderful, Dad. Martin and I have been swamped with his latest advisory project. We'll aim to stop by after you're home and adjusted. Aim to stop by. As if viewing her convalescing father was a hassle to fit around superior engagements. Thursday night I encountered Eleanor from room 341. She was recuperating from gallbladder removal and had been deserted by her daughter amid the trial. 30 years raising that child. Eleanor shared as we lounged in the facility's modest outdoor spot, funded her education, assisted her matrimony, watched her kids every weekend. When surgery arose, she claimed work leave was impossible. Too crucial, she insisted. I absorbed it, seeing my narrative mirrored in hers. We belonged to a cohort of guardians who'd surrendered all, only to learn our offspring mastered taking without reciprocating. What now, I probed. Eleanor's gaze steeled. Revise my will. Every cent to the animal refuge. Dogs at least show loyalty. Her sentiments echoed through the evening. Friday delivered my concluding session with Dr. Ellis. He declared me fit for release, assigned remedies, and set future visits. As he turned to exit, he lingered at the entrance. Benjamin, I hope you'll consider forgiveness. Holding on to anger isn't good for your heart. I smiled, surprising myself with how genuine it felt. Doctor, anger isn't what I'm holding on to. It's clarity. That evening, I sat by my window, watching the Chicago skyline twinkle in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Agnes and Martin were living their comfortable life, sustained by my decades of sacrifice and completely indifferent to me near-death experience. Tomorrow I would go home. Tomorrow I would begin reclaiming control of my life. The power of attorney would be revoked. The will would be changed. And Agnes would learn that taking her father for granted had consequences she never imagined. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was seeking justice. There's a difference, and an engineer understands the precision required for both. The discharge process began at 8 a.m. sharp. Dr. Martinez handed me a folder thick with papers, medication schedules, dietary restrictions, follow-up appointment cards. My signature felt shaky on the forms, but my resolve remained steady. Remember, no heavy lifting for 6 weeks, he instructed, checking boxes on his clipboard. And if you experience any chest pain or shortness of breath, call immediately. I nodded, though my mind was already racing ahead to more pressing matters than medical restrictions. Dr. Ellis appeared as I was gathering my few belongings from the bedside table. He looked tired, the way doctors do when they've delivered too much bad news to too many families. Benjamin, I wanted to see you off personally. He sat on the edge of my bed. You've been through a tremendous ordeal, both physically and emotionally. Take time to heal completely before making any major decisions. Doctor, you've been more family to me these past 2 weeks than me actual family. I meant every word. Thank you for your honesty about Agnes. It was painful, but necessary. He studied my face carefully. Forgiveness can be healing too. You know, sometimes people don't realize the impact of their choices until consequences teach them. I finished his sentence differently than he'd intended. You're right about that. After Dr. Ellis left, I completed the final paperwork. The discharge nurse, a young woman with kind eyes, wheeled me to the hospital entrance in the mandatory wheelchair, despite my protests. Hospital policy, she explained cheerfully. Liability issues. The April morning air hit me like a revelation. 2 weeks of recycled hospital air had made me forget how alive real air could feel. Chicago stretched before me, bustling with people who had families that cared whether they lived or died. I reached for my phone with fingers that trembled slightly. Whether from weakness or anticipation, I couldn't tell. Chase Bank, customer service. This is Benjamin Dunn. Account number 4478921. I need to revoke power of attorney on all my accounts immediately. I can help with that information, Mr. Dunn. However, revocation requires your physical presence at a branch office with proper documentation. What documents do I need? Photo identification, the original power of attorney papers, and you'll need to sign revocation forms in the presence of a bank officer. I'll be there this afternoon. Which branch handles these procedures? Our main downtown branch at 125 South La Salle can process revocations. They're open until 4 p.m. Perfect. Time enough to go home, collect the necessary papers, and begin reclaiming my life. I opened my phone's ride-sharing app, though the technology still felt foreign compared to the simple act of calling a taxi. My fingers moved slowly across the screen, selecting my home address in Evanston. The app indicated a driver named Victor would arrive in 8 minutes. 8 minutes to stand on this sidewalk and feel the weight of my decision settling around me like a comfortable coat. A businessman rushed past, shouting into his phone about quarterly reports and missing his daughter's recital. A young mother pushed a stroller while juggling her own phone call about daycare schedules. Everyone had responsibilities, priorities, people who needed them. Everyone except me. But that was about to change. For 68 years, I'd been the dependable one, the provider, the safety net for everyone else's dreams and failures. I'd worked overtime to pay for Agnes's education, emptied my savings for her wedding, sacrificed my retirement security for her husband's failed businesses, and when I lay dying, she couldn't leave a party. My phone buzzed. Your driver, Victor, is arriving in a white Honda Accord. I watched as the car pulled up to the curb. Its driver, a middle-aged man with graying temples, stepping out to help me with my small hospital bag. Time to go home. Time to collect those power of attorney documents. Time to visit Chase Bank and begin the process of taking back control of my financial life. Agnes thought she could ignore me, take me for granted, treat me like an inconvenience. She was about to discover how expensive that assumption would prove to be. Victor Ramirez stepped around his white Honda with the easy grace of someone who'd spent decades helping people into his car. His weathered face showed immediate concern when he saw me emerging from the hospital entrance. Northwestern Memorial, you okay, my friend? He reached for my hospital bag without being asked. I'm better now, I replied, settling into the passenger seat. The car smelled of coffee and pine air freshener with a rosary hanging from their view mirror, and a small photo of a young man taped to the dashboard. Evanston, right up on Sheridan Road. Victor checked his GPS and pulled into traffic. Heart trouble. I nodded, surprised by his directness. Most people danced around medical issues. My father had 3 heart attacks. Victor continued navigating toward Lakeshore Drive. Tough man. Worked construction for 40 years. Each time we thought we'd lose him. Did your family rally around him? Victor's laugh held an edge of bitterness. Oh, we did. The first time. By the third, my siblings were complaining about hospital visits interfering with their schedules. He glanced at me in the mirror. Family's complicated, isn't it? The question hung between us as we merged onto Lakeshore Drive. Lake Michigan stretched endlessly to our right, its surface choppy under the April wind. Downtown Chicago's skyline rose behind us, looking smaller with each mile north. My daughter couldn't even leave her husband's birthday party. I found myself saying when the doctor told her I might not survive the night. Victor's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Oh man, that hurts. How old is she? 42. Old enough to understand priorities. You'd think so. Victor was quiet for a moment, then gestured toward the photo on his dashboard. That's my son, Eduardo. Lives in Los Angeles now. Big shop marketing executive. Beautiful house, expensive car. You must be proud I was. Haven't heard from him in 5 years. Victor's voice carried the weight of profound disappointment. Last time we talked, hissed me to stop calling so much. Said it was embarrassing when his colleagues heard about his taxi driver father. The words hit me like a physical blow. Here was someone who understood the unique pain of being discarded by the person you'd sacrificed everything to raise. How do you deal with that kind of betrayal? Victor took the Belmont exit, heading north through Lincoln Park. I learned something important, Benjamin. Family isn't just blood. Family is who shows up when you need them, who answers the phone at midnight, who sits in hospital waiting rooms. I considered this as we passed the neighborhood where Agnes and Martin lived. Their condo was probably 8 blocks west of here, filled with expensive furniture I'd helped them buy. After Eduardo cut me out of his life, I spent 2 years angry, Victor continued. Bitter, resentful, wondering where I went wrong. Then I realized something. I was giving him power over my happiness even after he'd abandoned me. So what did you do? I started living for myself, started taking trips I'd always wanted to take, learned guitar, made real friends who actually want my company. He smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. Found out I'm pretty good company when I'm not wasting time on ungrateful children. We'd reached Evston now, passing the campus where I'd sent Agnes for her expensive education. Students walked the sidewalks with backpacks and dreams, most probably supported by parents who thought sacrifice equaled love. The thing is, Victor said, turning onto my street, they think we'll always be there, always forgive, always enable. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for ungrateful children is let them face the consequences of their choices. My house appeared ahead, a modest 2-story colonial with a small front yard I'd maintained religiously until my health declined. It looked smaller somehow, less significant than when I'd left for the grocery store 2 weeks ago. Victor pulled into my driveway and turned to face me fully. Benjamin, I don't know your situation completely, but if your daughter thinks she can ignore you when you're dying, maybe it's time she learned what life looks like without her father's support. He helped me out of the car, refusing my offer of a tip. My number's in your phone now, he said, handing me a business card. You need anything? Rides, groceries, someone to talk to? You call me. That's what real family does. I stood in my driveway watching Victor drive away, his words echoing in my mind. Family is who shows up when you need them. Agnes hadn't shown up, but Victor had, Dr. Ellis had. Even Harold and Eleanor, fellow patients, had shown more compassion than my own daughter. Time to start living for myself. Time to let Agnes learn what consequences looked like. My key turned in the front door lock for the first time in 2 weeks, and the familiar click sent a wave of relief through my chest. Home. The house smelled slightly stale from being closed up, but it was my sanctuary, my controlled environment. Where? The doorbell rang aggressively, followed immediately by harsh knocking. I'd barely set my hospital bag down in the entryway when the pounding intensified. Through the frosted glass, I could see 2 figures on my porch. Dad, open up. We know you're in there. Agnes's voice carried that particular edge of fury I remembered from her teenage years. But this was different, sharper, more desperate. I opened the door to find my daughter and son-in-law standing like an invasion force. Agnes pushed past me without invitation, Martin following with his usual swagger. What stupid thing did you do with the power of attorney? Agnes spun to face me, her perfectly styled hair disheveled, her business suit wrinkled. The bank called us an hour ago. Stupid. I closed the door slowly, buying myself a moment to process their ambush. I was dying in Northwestern Memorial, and you were at a birthday party. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Martin stepped forward, using his height to intimidate. Old man, you don't understand what you're messing with here. You need financial supervision. The heart attack clearly affected your judgment. My judgment. I moved to my living room, forcing them to follow me into my territory. My judgment told me to revoke access to my accounts from people who couldn't be bothered to visit their dying father. Agnes's face flushed. We didn't know it was that serious. The doctor made it sound routine. Dr. Ellis told you I might not survive the night. My voice stayed level. Engineer calm. You said you were busy. That's not how, did you? Agnes stammered, realizing her mistake. Martin grabbed her arm, stopping her from revealing more. Listen, Benjamin, you're confused. Heart attacks cause memory problems. Confusion about events. We were there for you. I sat down in my favorite armchair, the one I'd bought myself after working overtime to pay for Agnes's wedding. You're lying to my face in my own living room. Dad, you're being manipulated by hospital staff. Agnes's voice took on that wheedling tone she'd used as a child when caught in mischief. They probably filled your head with stories to make you angry at us. Get out. The words came out quiet but absolute. Martin's face darkened. You can't just kick us out. We're family. We have rights. This is my house. You have no rights here. I stood up, surprised by my own steadiness. You're trespassing. Agnes moved between Martin and me, her businesswoman persona cracking. "Dad, please, let's discuss this rationally. You're making a huge mistake that affects all of us. The only mistake you made was trusting you with access to my life savings." Martin's hands clenched into fists. "You ungrateful old fool. We've sacrificed for you. Agnes has spent years managing your affairs, and this is how you repay us. Sacrificed?" The word tasted bitter. "I paid for your restaurant that failed. I covered your credit card debts. I gave you the down payment for your condo. What exactly have you sacrificed?" "Our time, our energy, dealing with your needs while we're trying to build our own lives." Agnes shot Martin a warning look, but the damage was done. Their true feelings were finally in the open. I walked to the front door and held it open. "Get out of my house immediately." "This isn't over, Dad." Agnes's mask had completely fallen away, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "We'll fight this. We'll prove you're not competent to make these decisions." Martin leaned close as he passed, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You have no idea what you've started, old man." They left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there for a long moment, listening to their car door slam and their engine roar to life as they sped away. In the sudden silence, I could hear my heart monitor would have been beeping rapidly if I'd still been wearing one. I turned the deadbolt with shaking fingers, the metallic click echoing through my suddenly quiet home. The silence felt profound after their aggressive intrusion, but not peaceful, charged like the air before a storm. Walking through my living room, I straightened the throw pillow Agnes had knocked askew when she gestured wildly during her tirade. Such a small thing, but in my orderly world it felt like evidence of violation. "Well, prove you're not competent to make these decisions." Agnes's parting threat replayed in my mind as I moved to the kitchen, my legs still unsteady from the confrontation and the long morning. I filled my kettle with water, the familiar ritual helping settle my nerves. Tea had always been my thinking drink. While waiting for the water to boil, I processed what had just happened. They'd driven straight from the bank to confront me. No phone call, no attempt at civil conversation, just demands and threats in my own home. Martin's aggression had been particularly revealing. The way he'd called me old man, used his size to intimidate, threatened me in my own living room. This wasn't grief or confusion about the power of attorney cancellation. This was desperation. The kettle whistled and I poured water over Earl Grey leaves, watching the amber color spread through the cup. My hands were steadier now. I carried my tea to the living room window that faced the street. Agnes's BMW was gone, but I could still feel the echo of their presence, the way you can sense someone has been in your house even after they leave. "We have rights. We'll fight this." Martin had revealed more than he'd intended. They weren't just upset about losing financial access. They were panicked, which suggested they'd been depending on my money more than I'd realized. I settled into my reading chair, the one I'd positioned perfectly to catch the afternoon light. From here I could see Mrs. Rodriguez tending her garden next door, the mailman making his rounds, normal suburban life continuing as if my world hadn't just shifted on its axis. The confrontation had clarified something important. Canceling the power of attorney wasn't enough. If they were willing to storm into my house making threats, they'd be willing to take more drastic measures. "We'll prove you're not competent." That threat carried serious implications. If they could convince a court I was mentally incompetent due to the heart attack, they could regain control of my finances through guardianship proceedings. They could have me declared unable to manage my own affairs. I pulled my notebook from the side table, the same one I'd used for engineering calculations for decades. Now I needed to calculate something different, how to protect myself from my own family. Agnes had legal training from her business career. Martin had connections in the city from his various failed ventures. Together they could mount a serious challenge to my independence, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd revealed their true motivations too clearly. This wasn't about concern for my welfare. It was about money, pure and simple. I wrote in my notebook, Agnes and Martin, financial desperation. Willing to use legal system against me, need stronger protective measures. The afternoon sun slanted through my windows, warming the familiar room where I'd spent countless evenings reading, planning, living my quiet life. That life was over now. They'd made sure of that with their threats and demands. I thought about Victor's words during our ride home. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for ungrateful children is let them face the consequences of their choices. Canceling the power of attorney had been consequence number one. But if they wanted to escalate this conflict, I was prepared to show them exactly how expensive their greed would become. I reached for the phone. Time to call Thompson and Associates about updating my will. 2 days later, Mrs. Rodriguez approached me as I checked my mail. Her usually warm demeanor replaced by awkward hesitation. "Benjamin, how are you feeling after your incident?" The way she said incident sent warning signals through my engineer's brain. I'd known Maria Rodriguez for 15 years. She'd never been awkward around me. "I'm recovering well, thank you." "Why do you ask?" She glanced toward her house, then back at me with obvious discomfort. "Your daughter stopped by yesterday. She seemed very concerned about you living alone after the heart attack." My blood pressure spiked, but I kept my voice level. "Agnes was here," she said. "You've become forgetful, confused about things that you might need supervision." Maria's voice carried genuine worry, mixed with something else. "Doubt about me? What exactly did she tell you?" Maria shifted her gardening gloves between her hands. "That you've been making irrational financial decisions, canceling important arrangements without understanding the consequences. She asked me to keep an eye on you. Call her if you seemed unstable." The systematic nature of their attack became clear. They weren't just threatening legal action. They were poisoning my community relationships, building a case for incompetency by manipulating people who cared about me. "Maria, did I seem confused or unstable when we talked about your rose garden last week?" She looked relieved to focus on something concrete. "No, you were perfectly normal. Gave me excellent advice about the aphid problem. Then trust that judgment over gossip." 3 days later, I visited the Chase Bank downtown to finalize additional account security measures. The branch manager, Janet Chen, pulled me aside after our business concluded. "Mr. Dunn, I probably shouldn't mention this, but your daughter was here yesterday, asking about procedures for financial guardianship." Ice formed in my stomach. Guardianship? She wanted to know what medical documentation would be required to have someone declared unable to manage their own finances. I told her I couldn't discuss specific procedures, but Janet lowered her voice. She seemed very focused on post-heart attack cognitive impairment claims. "Did she file any paperwork?" "No, but she scheduled a consultation with our legal department for next week." I thanked Janet and left the bank with a growing sense of urgency. Agnes wasn't making idle threats. She was researching legal strategies to have me declared incompetent. By the following Tuesday, the scope of their campaign became fully apparent. At Brewster's Coffee, where I'd been a regular for a decade, the owner's greeting felt strained. "Benjamin, good to see you're managing okay." Even Tom Brewster, who'd known me since Agnes was in college, was treating me like I might be losing my faculties. "Tom, did someone suggest I wasn't managing well?" His face wrined. "Your daughter and her husband stopped by. They mentioned you'd been having some difficulties since the hospital, making impulsive decisions, getting confused about money matters." I ordered my usual black coffee, paid with exact change, and made casual conversation about the Cubs season prospects. Tom relaxed as I demonstrated complete mental clarity. "You seem fine to me," he admitted as I prepared to leave. "That's because I am fine. Remember that when people suggest otherwise." That evening I sat in my kitchen, ting the evidence of their systematic character assassination. 3 neighbors contacted my bank, local businesses where I was known. They were building a narrative of post-heart attack cognitive decline, preparing witnesses who could testify to my supposed incompetence. The engineering part of my mind admired their thoroughness even as I felt violated by their manipulation. They'd turned my community relationships into weapons against me. I pulled out my notebook and wrote, "Agnes and Martin organized competency challenge campaign. Timeline approximately 1 week. Targets neighbors, bank, local businesses. Goal: establish pattern of cognitive decline for legal guardianship." Below that I added counter-strategy required. Immediate action necessary. I reached for the phone and dialed Thompson and Associates. "This is Benjamin Dunn. I need to accelerate my will modification appointment. How soon can we meet?" "We have an opening tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be there." I understood now that they declared war on my independence, my reputation, and my right to control my own life. They thought an elderly heart attack patient would be easy to manipulate and defeat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The elevator climbed to the 14th floor of the LaSalle Street building, carrying me toward what would either be my salvation or the beginning of a legal war I might not survive. Through the elevator's glass walls, Chicago spread below me, a city where families either supported each other or destroyed each other, and I'd finally learned which category mine belonged to. James Mitchell's office occupied a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. His receptionist, a professional woman in her 30s, led me to a conference room where Mitchell waited with legal documents already spread across a polished mahogany table. "Mr. Dunn, please have a seat." Mitchell was perhaps 50, with grained temples and the careful demeanor of someone who'd handled thousands of family disputes. "Before we proceed, I need to ask some standard questions to verify your mental competency." I appreciated his directness. "Go ahead, what's today's date?" "May 12th, 2025, Tuesday." "Who's the current president?" "Donald Trump, unfortunately." Mitchell smiled briefly. "Can you tell me why you're here today?" "You want to completely revoke my current will and create a new one that disinherits my daughter and son-in-law entirely. That's a significant decision. Are you certain this is what you want?" I pulled out my notebook, the same one I'd used to document Agnes and Martin's campaign against me. "I've spent 3 weeks documenting their behavior since my heart attack. They've manipulated my neighbors, attempted to have me declared incompetent, and threatened me in my own home." Mitchell reviewed my notes with professional interest. "This is thorough documentation. What specifically triggered this decision?" "My daughter couldn't be bothered to leave her husband's birthday party when I was dying. Then they tried to destroy my reputation when I took back control of my finances." "I see." Mitchell made notes on his legal pad. "Illinois law allows complete disinheritance, but I need to ensure this document can withstand any competency challenges they might bring." "What kind of challenges?" "They could claim the heart attack affected your judgment, that you're not mentally capable of making such decisions." "Your documentation helps, but I'll include specific language preventing such challenges." Mitchell spent the next hour crafting language that would make my will ironclad. The new document left everything: my house, savings, investments, personal property to the American Heart Association. Agnes and Martin would receive exactly $1 each, just to prove I hadn't forgotten them. This clause here, Mitchell pointed to a paragraph he'd written, specifically states that you're of sound mind and body, that this decision was made after careful consideration, and that any attempts to contest based on mental incompetency will result in automatic loss of even the $1 bequest. Perfect. 2 witnesses from Mitchell's office, paralegals who'd never met me before, entered the conference room. Their presence would provide independent verification of my mental state during the signing. "Mr. Dunn, do you understand the contents of this will?" Mitchell asked formally. "I understand completely. I'm leaving my entire estate to charity and disinheriting my daughter and son-in-law. Are you making this decision freely without coercion or pressure?" "Absolutely, freely. It's the most logical decision I've ever made." I signed my name with steady hands, the same hands that had drafted engineering blueprints for 40 years. The witnesses signed below my signature, and Mitchell notarized the document with his official seal. "This will is now legally binding," Mitchell said, placing the original in his office safe. "I'll file a copy with the Cook County Probate Court tomorrow. Your estate is now protected." Walking back to the elevator, I felt lighter than I had in months. Agnes and Martin had declared war on my competency, my reputation, and my independence. Now they would discover the cost of that war. The elevator descended toward street level, carrying me back to a world where I was no longer a victim of my family's greed. 3 days later, I sat in my living room, watching the afternoon shadows lengthen across the same carpet where Agnes and Martin had threatened me 2 weeks ago. The signed will rested securely in Mitchell's office safe, but its power resided in my knowledge that their financial future had just evaporated. I dialed Agnes' number at exactly 4 p.m. timing, chosen to catch them both at home, giving them hours to absorb what I was about to tell them. "Dad." Agnes sounded surprised but pleased. "How are you feeling?" "Much better, actually. I'm calling to inform you about something important." I kept my voice conversational, almost casual. "I've changed my will." Silence stretched across the line for several heartbeats. "Changed it how completely?" "When I die, you'll receive nothing." "What? What are you talking about?" Her voice climbed an octave. "Nothing? That's impossible. Everything goes to the American Heart Association. You and Martin will each receive exactly $1 to prove I didn't forget you." The phone clattered as if she dropped it. Then I heard frantic whispering. Martin's voice joined the call. "Benjamin, you can't be serious about this nonsense." "Dead serious, Martin. The new will was signed 3 days ago, witnessed, notarized, and filed with probate court." Agnes' voice returned, shaking now. "Dad, this is insane. You can't just— we need to talk about this face to face. Feel free to come over." The line went dead. I made myself a cup of tea and settled back into my reading chair to wait. The afternoon sun painted everything golden, peaceful, while somewhere across the city, Agnes and Martin were undoubtedly having a very different kind of afternoon. They arrived in 47 minutes. I timed it. The doorbell rang with the same aggressive urgency as 2 weeks ago, but this time I held all the power. Agnes rushed past me the moment I opened the door, Martin close behind. But their body language had changed completely. Where before they'd been demanding and threatening, now they seemed smaller, desperate. "Dad, please tell me this is some kind of joke." Agnes's perfect composure had cracked. Her hair was disheveled, her business suit wrinkled as if she'd been pacing. "No joke. Legal documents don't have punchlines." Martin tried his usual intimidation tactics, stepping close to me. "Old man, you don't know what you're doing. This decision affects more than just us." "Really? Who else does it affect? Our future, our plans, our—" He stopped himself before admitting their complete financial dependence. Agnes dropped into my couch without invitation, her hands shaking. "Daddy, I made mistakes. I know I did. But completely cutting me out. That's not who you are. You're right. The father who would have accepted your neglect and abuse died in Northwestern Memorial. I'm someone different now. We can work through this." Agnes's voice took on the pleading tone she'd used as a child when she'd broken something valuable. "I'll be better, more attentive. I'll call every day." "Agnes, where were you on April 14th when I was dying?" She froze. "How do you know about Dr. Ellis told me everything about how you couldn't leave Martin's birthday party, about how you said you'd try to visit if your schedule permitted." Martin's face darkened. "That doctor violated patient confidentiality. He told a patient how his family responded to his emergency. That's not a violation. That's honesty." Agnes began crying, actual tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was wrong. I made a terrible mistake. But you can't punish me for the rest of my life." "I'm not punishing you for the rest of your life." I sat across from her, calm while she fell apart. "I'm punishing you for the rest of mine." Martin knelt beside Agnes, both of them now below my eye level. "Please, Benjamin, we're begging you. Don't do this. Now you know exactly how it feels to be abandoned in your darkest hour." Agnes looked up at me through her tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks like war paint washed away by defeat. "Please, Daddy, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Sorry you got caught or sorry you did it." Martin grabbed her arm, pulling her to her feet. His face had transformed from pleading to something darker, more desperate. "Fine. You want to play this game, old man? We'll see about that." "What game, Martin?" "The competency hearing. We'll prove you're mentally unfit. That heart attack scrambled your brain, made you paranoid and vindictive." His voice gained strength as he built his argument. "No rational person destroys their family over a misunderstanding." Agnes wiped her face, her business persona reasserting itself. "Dad, we've already spoken to people about your condition, your neighbors, your bank. They're concerned about your decision-making." I stood up slowly, using my full height advantage. "You mean the lies you've been spreading? The manipulation campaign you've been running? It's not manipulation when it's true." Martin's mask had completely slipped. "Now you're old, sick, and making irrational decisions. The only irrational decision I made was trusting you with my financial information for 2 years." Agnes moved to block my path to the door. "We're not leaving until you agreed to reconsider. You're not staying regardless." I walked around her toward the front door. "This is still my house." Martin stepped between me and the exit. "You'll regret this decision, Benjamin. We'll fight this will with everything we have." "With what money?" "Oh, that's right. You don't have any." The truth of their situation hit them simultaneously. Without access to my accounts, without the promise of inheritance, they had no sources for legal challenges. Agnes's face went pale. "You can't just abandon us like this. Watch me." Martin's hands clenched into fists. "You think you're so smart, but you're just a bitter old man dying alone. Better alone than surrounded by people who see me as an ATM." "This isn't over," Agnes hissed, her grief transforming into pure rage. "We'll find a way to contest this. We'll prove you're incompetent. You'll do exactly what you did when I was dying." "Nothing." I opened the front door wide because when it matters, you only think about yourselves. Martin leaned close as he passed, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You have no idea what you've started. This war isn't over." Agnes paused in the doorway, her face a mixture of pain and calculation. "I'm still your daughter, no matter what legal documents say. And daughters have rights. Daughters who show up have rights. Daughters who abandon their fathers have consequences." They left, but not quietly this time. Agnes slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I heard them arguing in the driveway, their voices carrying across the neighborhood as they fought about blame and strategies and lawyers they couldn't afford. I locked the door and returned to my living room, settling back into my chair as their car roared away. The house felt peaceful again, though I knew this peace was temporary. They'd meant their threats. They would try to challenge the will, try to prove incompetency, try to reclaim what they considered their birthright. But I'd been engineering solutions to complex problems for 40 years. Every structure I'd ever designed had to withstand pressure, weather, and time. This legal structure would do the same. Outside, the Chicago evening settled over my quiet street. Somewhere in the city, Agnes and Martin were plotting their next move. But for now, in my own home, surrounded by the life I'd built with my own hands and mind, I was exactly where I belonged. The phone rang. I let it ring. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.